tell us a little bit about what was what was the technology behind what we were seeing and hearing happening? That sound was really incredible too.
Yeah, definitely. And also I have my handy notes here, just in case if I forget anything. So pretty much what you were seeing, I started out with, it's called VQGAN+CLIP. So it's essentially a book that generates image to text prompts. And those text prompts, I put in, what does the Navajo dream look like? What does the Chippewa Cree dream look like? What does the Navajo look like? And then from there, I generated those images into video. And from the video, I put it into my live visual software, VDMX. And so that's what you were seeing visually.
Yeah, to me, because I saw this when Britney was a student as an MFA student in our program at UNM, and to me, that's real. You're scrubbing the internet for images that correspond to these very specific words, and this was before the big explosion of AI, and so I see this as kind of like a early or maybe you were prophetic in kind of seeing what was going to be happening.
Foreseeing the future?
Just and very soon and very quickly. So why did you choose to scrub the internet for images of those words, and what were you looking to do, and what did you were there surprises? What did you find when you did that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think it came down to, when I started the project, I was pretty much thinking about how Native Americans are portrayed in mainstream media and thinking about master narratives, right? And for me, AI was sort of this sort of new media, new thing that was happening at the time, and this was in 2022, right? So it's AI has definitely exploded into ChatGPT, but that was before that. So at the time, I was thinking about, I'm always thinking about, how are Native Americans portrayed in mainstream America? Beyond that, but we live in America right now. So thinking about that, I started from that place. And so AI is just this new technology of, it's pretty much this technology that's further portraying Native Americans that's outside of pretty much our control in a sense, right? That's what master narratives is. It's a colonial construct that's outside of, essentially, my control. So pretty much that's why I thought it would be interesting to kind of prompt this question of as simple as, what does the Navajo look like? What does the Chippewa Cree look like? And then from there, and that's when I started my inquiry into asking this sort of technology, what does that look like? And so I started from there and then continued on.
And were you surprised at what it kind of gave back to you, and how you obviously are then manipulating those images after the fact? So how does the manipulation play into your interpretation?
Right. So I wasn't surprised, and I was surprised in terms of it did sort of generate some really surreal and abstract kind of images, but I wasn't surprised. And so the way that I took that, and by sort of taking that and physically manipulating it, I think pretty much it was sort of, trying to think of this word, I think when I take certain material, I pretty much think of it as remixing it, right? Changing it into something new. And the way, coming from a Navajo and Chippewa Cree woman from the Navajo Nation Reservation, I feel as though taking that and creating something new, I'm kind of putting, my own thinking and my own feelings into that and creating something new, and kind of like, which is a part of, you know, Indigenous Futurism and that aesthetic of moving into the future, right? Because of course AI, like, it's taken off so much. So at the time, it's like, okay, let me try to grasp at that and create something that's hopefully productive. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because I feel like after having seen your performance, if I were to encounter images like that that haven't been manipulated, my mind would refer back to your performance and the way you saw them. So I think that there's something really important about doing that kind of work. Can you say something about the sound? That was so incredible.
Oh, yes. So the sound was a mixture of samples of, so the drumming and the singing was from my uncle Toby Stumpf from Nevada, so that's my Chippewa Cree side. And for the overall feel, I definitely derive my sort of thinking from neo-psychedelia and like dream pop aesthetics. So I was really thinking about sonic textures and atmosphere. So really like a lot of like reverb, I'm sure everyone heard it, reverb, the bass. And I really was thinking about, in terms of like the bass and atmosphere and texture, I really wanted everyone to feel it. Not only like hear it, but I wanted you all to feel it, to really feel it. And that definitely is an aesthetic of sonic sovereignty, which is another theoretical term I'll throw out there. I'm definitely not a theorist or like I'm an academic, but definitely I was thinking about that, yeah.
Can you tell us more about sonic sovereignty?
I have two definitions here in my notebook. These are, definitions that are spoken from other people's words. So pretty much sonic sovereignty is sort of this embracing of rupture and how out of time listening sort of orients decolonial possibilities. Another definition that I have for you, for everyone else. So sonic sovereignty encourages us to experiment with temporal possibilities of listening by detailing moments within a sample, lyric, or musical reference that moves the listener out of a narrative time. Mm-hmm. So I think like definitely that was in my mind's eye when creating the sound of, there's moments of really heightened awareness and a lot of bass and a lot of tension. There's also moments of silence and quiet. And so I think that's what I was kind of going for.
Yeah, I felt that you were definitely playing with our sense of time in the beginning, that we didn't see those colorful images for a while in the beginning, and the sound was very kind of slow and hypnotic, and that I felt like I was kind of put into a different state at that, from that beginning, and especially those kind of high pops that you had. Would you be open to?
Oh yeah.
Does anybody have any questions from the?
I feel like dreaming, and everyone dreams, but for me, like dreaming there's this space of possibility or beyond possibility for things to manifest, right? And so with that in mind, looking into the future, and also like looking into the future, there's definitely, I don't think of it as sort of this linear of like the past, present, and future, but that's the only way I could describe it, right? And so that's part of the reason why like I titled this in the Navajo name Na'Itzeth. So in English, it's definitely like dreaming, but the way that I think about it and the way that I think about Indigenous Futurism is pretty much like I'm trying to make sense of like where I'm at here in life and where I've come from, but being an Indigenous person from the reservation, and dealing with a lot of, colonial, heteronormative kind of power structures and, all of this like conflict. I think for me, that's kind of like the only way to move, to move forward in a sense. And in my work, I feel like that's like the only way I can't live in a sense. So I think like, I don't know, dreaming and futurism, like there is a spectacle, like you said, spectacle, but I don't think of it as a spectacle. It's more of like a way of thinking. I don't know, I'm kind of going all over the place, so I'm trying to answer your question as much as I can.
No, you're doing great. Thank you. Your work, because it's visually very striking and rich and varied and surprising, like you said, neo-psychedelic. But at the same time, in my body, I feel like a strong sense of hypervigilance and dread sometimes in encountering your work. And I wonder if you could just speak to what you think about playing with the emotions of your audience, because I think that you've always done that very effectively.
Yeah, that's interesting. Definitely like, it's interesting hearing like the affect or the effect from the audience. I don't mean to play with your emotions.
You do it so well.
But I mean, my work is very emotional, definitely, and I am a very emotional person, so I'm not sure how I can speak to. I guess I'm not really. When I create my work, I'm not really thinking about how would it affect the audience in a sense. I'm mostly, maybe you're mostly experiencing like the outcome of what I'm trying to project, and definitely my work does have like I said, like it comes from an emotional spot, right? It's very personal. My work is very personal, and especially like the sound. And also thank you, Jacqueline, for complimenting me on the sound, because this sound piece is definitely like a new venture for me, because I'm definitely video based. So I definitely feel when I was creating the sound for this, it was definitely coming from like an emotional space. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that.
Well, then I can just commend you on success in empathic transmission.
And authenticity.
Hi, thank you. That was very meditative and took me into another realm, somewhat of a psychedelic imagery that you had. And I was wondering if using the psychedelic imagery had any reverberations to the culture of Native Americans and using psychedelics, and also prophecies and different things that have been happening on the land.
I wasn't thinking about, I mean, definitely psychedelia does have some ties to, Native American culture in terms of like the plant, right? But I think what I would say to that comment is definitely the church rock spill is really personal to me. Like I grew up in church rock, and my I think he's my grandfather, either great grandfather. He's actually like a leader and prominent in that community, and I think it's the Red Rock Community Pond, I believe. And I have work in that. I did work with that in the past as well, so that's all I could say about it. Or like a sound aspect of that. Being able to take that and being able to kind of make it my own and turn it into something new and something positive and something to be able to move further into the future. I feel like that's what remix is for me, and I feel as though that's what keeps me alive, and that's what keeps me creating work. And I know that's like very like deep, but it's very personal, you know, it's very personal.
Yes, and what really struck me was how the soundtrack kept the emotional line. It held such a strong emotional line of pain and power, and the pacing of it was really deep, and it anchored. I loved how it anchored the visuals that we were seeing that took us into other spaces, but that soundtrack was really a solid anchor that took us other places more deeply. Yeah, thank you. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.